Hi everyone, and welcome to the October 23rd, 2014 edition of the Champion Briefs News. My name is Isabella Peretti, and we're going to cover everything that occurred in the past 7 days, both domestic and international. Luckily, it wasn't too scary of a week, but of course we have some issues we need to be abreast of with upcoming tournaments, and of course, just to be in the know. So let's get started first with oil and energy. Now, as the Council on Foreign Relations indicated on October 17th of 2014, there has been a recent crude oil crash that has been taking place in the last 3 months or so. Now, the barrel of Brent crude oil, which is the most important global oil price, has actually decreased by $30 since its high in June of this year. Now, a decrease of $30 actually translates to roughly 25% of the total value of a barrel of crude oil, which is a huge and disastrous plummet. We haven't seen such a drop since 2008, and then once again a small drop in 2012, and obviously the consequences were much more deleterious given a significantly more fragile situation for the global economy. Now, while this drop in global oil may lead to consumers to rejoicing, it is going to have a bit of a negative effect on the American economy, but only temporarily. As that same article finds, falling crude oil prices will crimp oil producers' profits and essentially will deter them from drilling. And for the United States, it's trying to maintain its prominence as a country that isn't too dependent on others for its extraction of oil and other forms of natural gas. This is especially important, but even though we're going to see a slight downturn in the amount of oil that we are drilling in the next couple of months, ultimately there's going to be a net gain for the United States GDP because this is fantastic for American consumers. Ultimately, this $30 decline translates to more than $200 billion a year of savings for the average American citizen, and that is the totality of American citizens, not $200 billion a year per American citizen, but it translates very well for the United States economy and going into the next fiscal year, if we can maintain that same level. But some things we need to be cognizant of are first what the implications of that decrease in the Brent crude oil is going to have on countries in the Middle East. Furthermore, how long can we sustain this drop in the price of crude oil before it starts having negative ramifications that are more widespread and a little bit more difficult for the global marketplace to deal with? And then finally, what can we do, per always, to eradicate our usage of crude oil altogether? Obviously, this is something that's not going to come overnight, but seeing as there's a particularly volatile market, it brings up the issue once again as what we can do to completely wean off our dependence, our human dependence on crude oil. Alright, now let's discuss ISIS. This week we luckily don't have too much to discuss with regard to violence and the development. Of course, that was covered a little bit in the video from 2 weeks ago and last week, but what I would like to cover this week is something that is a little bit scarier in my opinion because it hits very close to home. CNN indicated on October 20th of 2014 that roughly 100 foreign fighters that fight for ISIS or ISIL actually come from the United States, and that same article furthers that every week 5 people from the UK alone join ISIS, as the British Commission stated on Tuesday. So there is actually a Western force that is coming together with ISIS. Whether these are people of Syrian or Iraqi descent is not always a similarity. They could be American or just straight from the United Kingdom and have no affiliation whatsoever with any of those engaged in the ISIS conflict, but typically there is some Middle Eastern descent that comes into play. But we have to see that this can actually lead to a concern that is greater insofar as propagandizing and their ability to disseminate information and ideology not only in the Middle Eastern region with Syria and Iraq, but more so throughout the international community and even in the West, which seemed prior to this unthinkable. But as the Denver Post indicated on October 22nd of 2014, 3 teen girls from Denver, two of Somali descent, 2 sisters, and 1 of Sudanese descent, were actually stopped at a Frankfurt, Germany airport early that morning after their passports were traced because their parents were concerned when $2,000 and passports were missing from safes at home. Now, they had told their parents they were going off to school, and then they were not at school. They received phone calls of concern from family and friends, and they could not contact their daughters. These parents were obviously very, very concerned to see what had transpired, and with the passports gone, they did look to stopping them wherever they may be. It turned out that these 3 girls were planning to head over to Turkey to join the ISIS efforts. 3 Denver girls, aged 16 and 17 years old, all being targeted by ISIS through way of technological infiltration through Facebook, social media, and other forms, that was able to have a communication network between that of the ideas of ISIS and that of the American civilian, American girls just sitting at home and now joining an extremist network. It's very crazy stuff. So some things we need to be asking, some things we need to be aware of, or what can be done by the FBI and the CIA to hopefully curb future transgressions like this one. What can be done also just by the international community in stopping ISIS's hold, not only in the United States, but all of the Western world and even within the area that it's directly affecting. All of this is more so focused on the military aspect, when we oftentimes forget about targeting that ideological aspect, which is perhaps even scarier, because while we can shoot people, we can kill people, we can't just kill off an idea. That's not something that is done quite as quickly.